I'm Barbara Shying, and I'm here to talk about watercolor and how to get started. The first thing about doing watercolor is getting the right supplies. Now, I've been teaching for about 10 years. I've been around enough people to know what they buy and the mistakes they make. And the money that they're wasting by buying the wrong thing. And so I'm here to give you some tips about that and steer you in the right direction. Your supplies matter, and the quality of your supplies matter, because if you end up getting cheap supplies, you're not going to be happy with what's happening, and you're going to want to toss everything out and say, I don't know why I ever started this. I've been there, and then I had an instructor tell me differently, so that made all the difference in the world. So I'm here to tell you that just getting a few good supplies will help you to want to keep going and keep trying to do this, which is fun. And you might even want to hang it on your wall, and you might want to give it to your children or grandchildren. So that's fun. And that's what we're here to do. The first thing I want to talk about is your paper. And that is probably, no, I know it is the most important thing that you are going to start with. And I can tell you right now, you can go into any art supply store, you can go into Michael's, you can go online, and there'll be tons of paper that says watercolor paper. And not all of it is very good. I can tell you right now, there are a handful of papers that are worthy of painting on. If you just want to do some quick sketches and do some field work that just, thumbnail things, then any kind of watercolor paper will probably suffice. But if you want to start a real nice watercolor, you want to have real nice paper. That's your foundation, and that's where you start. There are many brands of watercolor paper. The one I use, and I'm going to try some other ones, but the main one that I've been using is Arches, A-R-C-H-E-S, Arches, and it is paper made in France. And they can come in blocks like this. It's an actual block. A block means that it's glued together. All the papers are glued together on the side. And it has a little opening at the top. And it doesn't move. It just stays on this block, and you can peel it off when you're done painting. I'll explain more about that later. But it comes something like this, and this is 20 sheets. Or it comes in big sheets like this. It's a really big sheet, 22 by 30. Okay, it's very big. And what you do is just cut it into the sizes you want, and you can, get multiple paintings out of one sheet. One sheet, if you just buy one sheet, if you go to an art store and you buy one sheet of Arches watercolor paper, it can cost you about $15, I'm guessing. It could be more now. I don't know. I don't buy it by the sheet. I buy it in a pack of 25, so I'm spending a little more. That's online. When you go to a regular art store, you're going to spend a little more money, unfortunately. If you go to Michael's, they do have it, and they don't have much, but they do have Arches watercolor paper. They do sell the blocks, which is good. And I believe you can use a coupon when you buy them, but the blocks are very expensive. Don't be shocked. Now, the blocks can be larger like this, and this is a 12 by 16. And this one is 7 by 10, which is, you know, a decent size. And you can actually take a big one and split it up and do a painting over here and a painting over here, you know, if you want to save money. That's always a good thing. So these you can use, the big one, I don't know how much they cost now, but the big one, don't be shocked now, it's like $79, I think. Could be $69, but I think since I've bought one, it could be $79 by now. But if you have a 40% off coupon, it's a little better, but you're getting 20 sheets. It's okay. This is good for if you're traveling. It's convenient. That's what it is. And the thing about watercolor paper is it, any kind of paper, if you paint on it or get it wet, it's going to buckle. And these, because they are bound together, and sometimes they split like that. See, it's not always good. But usually they don't. But what binding them together does is keeps them from buckling. Usually. I find they do buckle a little bit. But yeah, most times they don't. So I would suggest if you want to, I would go to Michael's actually. They have sheets of watercolor paper cut in quarters, I believe. I think it's quarters. And it's like $17 and you get maybe 4 or 5 sheets out of it. Something like that. I don't know, I haven't bought that. But it's in a package, a plastic package, and it says, now if you're gonna get arches, which I recommend, and really they don't have any other good paper at Michael's. Other than arches. So I wouldn't try other things thinking it's the right thing, because it's probably not. And you can ask me, you know, in the comments below, you can ask me and I will definitely answer you. But if you see this pattern on the packaging, this is an indication that it's arches, because they always have this. It could be different colors. Sometimes they have a yellow color on here. That's just the different types of paper, and I'll get into that shortly. But usually it's the green one, and it always has this black and white border. So that's something to look for. Now, there are different types of papers of the good paper. There's different textures, there's different weights. So you have to make those choices too. But I'm here to tell you that to do the more economical thing, you're going to want the lightest weight that you can get that's good quality. Because the heavier weight paper costs obviously more, because there's more paper involved in making it. So the usual pound, it's in pounds, and the usual one that people use is 140 pound paper. And usually they're in these blocks. They're the 140 pounds. It'll say 140 pound right here. Cold pressed paper. And I'll talk about what cold press means. But this is a fairly lightweight paper. There are many other more lightweight papers. There's like a 90 pound, but that, you don't want to work on that. You want to work on at least 140 pounds. Now, if you go into Michael's and you look on their shelves and you see big words that say watercolor paper and good quality watercolor, whatever, they'll say a whole bunch of things and it'll say 140 pounds on it. Don't believe it. It's not true. That's not good paper. I'm telling you right now. And I've been teaching for 10 years and I give this same spiel every year, and no doubt somebody will come in with the cheap paper saying it says 140 pound on it. And I'm like, no, that doesn't mean that it's good paper. It just means that it's 140 pounds for 500 sheets of that paper. It doesn't mean it's good paper. So this Arches paper is the good paper. And it says 140 pounds on it. But it should say that. But I think the other companies just feel like if they put that on there, you're going to believe it and you're going to buy it. But trust me, it's not the right paper. Okay. There's another weight of paper. It's 300-pound paper, and that is this one that I'm holding up here. You can't tell because you can't feel it, but you can hear it by the sound. It's heavy. It's thicker, and the reason some artists buy it, and I buy it sometimes, even though it's expensive, you don't have to. It doesn't buckle really at all. And it's really nice to work with. It does have, you can buy it in different textures, just like you can get the 140-pound paper in different textures. You can get a rougher texture or smoother texture or totally flat texture, no texture. So that would be called hot press. And the way I remember it is you're like with an iron, it's a hot iron and you're pressing something and all the wrinkles come out. So a hot press paper will be much smoother and practically no bumps in it at all, and is different painting on something like that versus more textured paper. And the textured paper will have lots of bumps in it, and I like working on textured paper. It's good for like if you want to paint water and you just want to stroke your brush very softly on top of it, it'll have a ripple effect, or it'll have shining effect on the water. So there are advantages to having those raised surfaces to the paper. Now a flat, like a hot press paper, I would not recommend for beginners because it's harder to control the watercolor that way. So just a regular cold press. Now cold pressed is what they call it. It has just a medium texture to it. You can get cold press rough texture, rough paper, or just cold press paper, just regular cold press. So I would recommend just the regular cold press, not rough texture in the beginning. You can experiment, but that would be my recommendation. And it's easier to find. Most of the things in Michael's are just the regular cold pressed. It'll say cold pressed on the top right here. So if you go into an art store, they will have all different kinds. They actually have 300-pound paper in blocks also. I've seen it. I don't know why, because it doesn't buckle, so I don't know why they do that, but I have seen it. It's kind of rare though, but I think you can get it. There's no reason to get 300-pound paper in a block. It doesn't make sense. But so 140-pound paper in a block is better to work with. So this is a 140-pound sheet, and you can see it's lighter than when I do this. It's much lighter. So, and it's still good. It's great paper. There are ways to keep this paper flat, and that is to put it on a board, wet it, put it on a board, and staple it to the board, and then let it dry, and then that will keep it flat. However, I find that to be time consuming, and I want to paint right away, usually. Some artists will have lots of boards ready to go. I'm kind of like, I don't do that. I used to stretch. It's called stretching your paper. And what you want to do, if you want to do it, and it helps it from buckling when you're painting, and it's kind of important if you want a very smooth wash. If your paper buckles while you're painting, the paint can get into the form on the paper and puddle, and then you're not going to get a smooth wash. But I haven't had any trouble with it really doing that. So I've been painting on it not stretched because I'm lazy. And then after I'm done with my painting, I will flatten it out, and I can tell you how to do that later on. For now, if you want to stretch your paper and you want to do everything the right way, you have to have a wooden, well, you don't have to have a wooden board. You can have another kind of board, and I don't remember the name of it. It's Gator Board. That's it. It's called Gator Board, or is a foam core board it's not the same as foam core like in the store. It's got a harder board on the top, so it's not cardboard, but it's some kind of plastic thing that's really hard. It's very tough, and water can't go through it. So you can actually staple on that too, and that is probably better than the wood I used to do it on. I used to do it on a big board, wooden board, and it's heavy and it's kind of inconvenient to paint on, so I didn't like that too much. But the Gator Board is very light, very easy to work with. One thing that's a problem is it's expensive. Very expensive. It does pay to buy one though. I think one is $27. It might have gone up since I've used it, but it's pretty large. And actually, I think it might be large enough to split it in half. So it's worth getting. It is, if you're doing a larger painting and you want a nice flat wash, then I would definitely stretch my paper. I have been working fairly small lately. Mostly the largest I do is 12 by 14, maybe 14 by 16, but I've done larger paintings where I know, and I want to enter it in a show or something, and I want it to be right, so I will stretch it. It depends on what I'm doing, but it's always good to have it if you're serious. If at this point you're serious about watercolor, when you buy something like that, you're serious. So but I'm just letting it out there what there is available and what you can do. So now that we talked about paper, and if you have any more questions about paper, please add it in the comments. I will gladly let you know what I know. And if I don't know it, I will look it up and let you know. So the next thing I want to talk about are your brushes.